Welcome back to the BJJ Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ford. My guest today is a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He was the 2023 ADCC European Trials 66 kilogram champion. He's also an IBJJF 2022 No-Gi Purple Belt World European Champion. He's a Who's Number One Super Fight winner and also a Polaris Super Fight winner. He's an All-Stars BJJ Purple Belt Double Gold Champion and also an Empire Grappling Grand Prix champion. He was also a Blue Belt London Open champion. He trains out of Apex Jiu-Jitsu in London, England. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be joined today by one of Jiu-Jitsu's newest and brightest stars, Owen Jones. How are you today, Owen?
Yeah, I'm good, man. That was a good intro. That was sick. You had the whole line. No,
Those are all your accomplishments, man. The better the intro, the better your accomplishments are, my man. So congratulations on all your success. Owen, man, you've been an incredibly exciting athlete to watch, man. I've really enjoyed all your matches, and I'm really excited and really interested in hearing your background and where you came from and how you came to be. So the question I always like to start with, tell us about where you're from originally and what life was like for you before you started training jiu-jitsu.
Okay, yeah. So basically, I'm from, obviously I lived in London my whole life. I was born and raised in London. I used to live in Southwest London when I was growing up. Majority of my life I was playing rugby. And then, so that was kind of the reason I started jiu-jitsu, right? My sister started training because like she was younger than me. She's crazy. And they were needing an excuse to drain some energy from her. So we were like just giving her a martial art. And basically it was like close to the house. It was like on the way home from the school. So basically she started doing jiu-jitsu. And then I took her there a couple of times. Then once I took her there, they like convinced me to do like a trial session. And then after this session, I was like, I enjoyed it, but I also thought it'd benefit my rugby because at the time I was like heart sent on like, I'm going to become a rugby player, everything like this. And like, I was fully involved in that. And then I thought jiu-jitsu would help like be a byproduct. Like it would help me get better at rugby. Obviously grappling and rugby do have, obviously they're very different, but they have similar, like they can counter each other, right? It's like double legs and stuff like this help you with tackling and stuff like this. So that's basically why I started. And then I started loving it. I started training quite a lot. And then basically, I think when I was like 15, I just hadn't grown at all. So I was still like 5'4" or something like this, and like crazy short. So I was like, maybe rugby's not for me. I started enjoying it less because everyone was like getting bigger. And then everyone was like 6'6" and everything like this. And I'm just like sitting here, just a little midget on the field, right? So, and then I was like, I'm enjoying jiu-jitsu enough that I want to start doing it properly. So then I started doing like full-time jiu-jitsu basically. So then also lockdown hit as well, which kind of like just made me stop wanting to do rugby because of like zero rugby during that. And then this is when like the whole Apex Jiu-Jitsu thing started, right? After lockdown is when the gym opened. So one of my friends, Elliot, who is like one of the co-owners of the gym, he invited me to go there and train and stuff like this. So basically like took me out of the, like when I was in lockdown, all it was just playing video games and just sitting in bed 24 hours a day, just playing this like Modern Warfare, just Warzone and just grinding, and that was it. And then he was like, oh, do you want to come train jiu-jitsu full time and like teach and stuff this? And then I was like, yeah. And then from then on, I've been training pretty much every day and competing, teaching. And now, yeah, and it's led all the way up to here.
That's incredible, man. Lots of things to unpack. There's several things I want to touch on in what you just said, man. For starters, yeah, the lockdown. So the lockdown was a weird period for a lot of people because it was obviously a really tough period, but it did lead a lot of people to finding some new hobbies and activities that they were into. I personally gained like 15 pounds during the lockdown. We were just sitting around, like you said, playing video games, eating poorly, no jiu-jitsu. But it's cool that you found a way to be able to train and teach during that time, man. So that it sounds like that's when things really accelerated for you.
Yeah. Yeah, so what it was like the start of the lockdown, I was the same as everyone else, right? Like people were training, but I wasn't getting invited to training, especially because I was like younger at this time. I was like I think I'm 16 at the time of the lockdown, like 15, 16. So no one really wanted to invite me to train like this, like at the gym I was at before, because it was kind of a bit shady still. So they wanted only like the insider people. So I wasn't training for the majority of it. Then Elliot invited me to go train with him at his house when it was like the 6-person rule thing. So like towards the end of lockdown, right? And then that's when I started training again. And then that's why I started like seeing big improvements, right? Because the benefit of it was that like, because all the gyms were shut, there was almost like no politics, right? So it's like usually now everyone has to teach, that everyone has their places they want to represent, and they don't want to cross train because of things, upsetting people, and don't want to have people upset. But during lockdown, it was like no one cared because no one had anything to do. There was no tournaments. There was no one was teaching anything like this. So everyone would just come and train at one spot. So like the best guys in one place, right? So then it was the best training, and I also had the most improvement because the training was so good.
That's really incredible, man. Well, something else that you said there as well is that you started with rugby. Rugby, you could clearly see an easy transition between rugby and grappling, or just rugby and combat sports in general. Very tough sport.
Yeah, for sure.
I've always said that if martial arts didn't exist, I might have gotten into rugby myself. I think that would have been really appealing to a young Ryan. So really cool that that's where you came from. You mentioned also that you hit a point where the guys around you were growing and you weren't keeping up as far as size. Another great reason to transition into something like jiu-jitsu. As we know, jiu-jitsu is an art where, it doesn't matter how big or small you are, it's all about technique. What do you think was the final nail in the coffin that made you say, okay, I'm leaving rugby and I'm going to transition over to jiu-jitsu and make this my thing instead?
I think there was like a point where I was either like playing less or getting played less, or I was seeing less success in my games purely because, like, the thing is, if you're smaller, you can get away with it if you're like extremely fast, right? I was relatively fast. Like, I'm sure if I random joke, people are going to be like, oh, you're quite quick. But like, in comparison to the people who you need to be that fast, I was not that fast, right? Like, compared to the top guys who are just rapid. So I was like, just like playing less, getting like, it was to a point where it's like, I was seeing loads of success in jiu-jitsu when I was like competing and smashing everyone. Everyone was like, you could be super good. And in rugby, everyone was like, oh, you're a bit short, you're a bit this. So people are like, basically, it was more like people telling me that rugby might not be an option. And then at jiu-jitsu, everyone was like saying that, oh, you could be really good. So it was just like, I just naturally started drifting over there. I think it wasn't like a decisive point. It was more just like I was gradually just fading, like playing less rugby, enjoying it less. Because obviously, the fundamental reason you enjoy a sport is when you're doing good. I mean, at least for me, if I'm not winning, I don't want to do it. I know certain people can do jiu-jitsu and certain people can do certain sports because they enjoy it. If I'm losing, or if I don't think I can be the best, or if I don't think I can be number one, I don't want to do it anymore. Like, I'll just stop doing it. Like, I'm super competitive. So the minute I start losing, I get super frustrated and I stop enjoying it. So like, that was what I think it was for rugby. It was like, I was just getting played less and I was getting worse and worse, it felt like. So I was like, oh, I'm done. And jiu-jitsu, I was just going constantly on, like, I was constantly going up and everyone was telling me that I could do things. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go and do jiu-jitsu instead.
Well, man, you were talking about being fast. I mean, dude, you're fast on the mat, my man. Holy hell, are you quick in jiu-jitsu, man? So that surprises me. It surprises me that you weren't one of the faster guys in rugby, but that really is an interesting transition, though, man. I think that you obviously made the right choice, and yeah, I can also appreciate what you said too. Like, ultimately, if you're going to be pursuing something, there has to be some level of enjoyment to it, especially if it's a sport. So yeah, finding that balance of enjoyment and also progress and seeing your success is obviously really important as well to keep yourself motivated,
Yeah, for sure. And it was like in my head as well, I knew I had to do a sport, like, because in school I was failing real bad. So it was like my only option was school or working construction. So like it was construction or a sport, sorry, not like school was just not an option. It was just failing. So it was like, I'm either going to become a laborer or I need to make one of these things work. And I think jiu-jitsu is definitely the easier one. It's the more unserious sport. It's definitely easier to get higher. The pool in rugby is much bigger for sure. Yeah. So I was like, got to stick with what I got.
That's super relatable, man. What do you think it was about school that didn't make you, that didn't captivate you? Were you kind of like ADD? Were you just restless?
I didn't really pay attention. I just generally wasn't like extremely smart. Like, honestly, like that's just it's a lot of not trying, because when I did try, I could like kind of catch up, but it was almost like I was way too far behind and I just didn't even care. And I also enjoyed like messing around and doing like dumb shit. And I like slide down, like I would get suspended all the time for like really silly stuff, like sliding down like the stairs on the table and stuff like this, like outside of classrooms, and like just stuff that's like, I look back at it now, I'm like, that was so dumb. Like, what was I even thinking, So it's like, I would just like, I think I enjoyed being like the class clown at times, like people laughing with you, laughing at you, even just like making people laugh and stuff like this by doing crazy shit,
Yeah, that's super relatable for me, man. I think that my main motivation for getting on the bus and going to school every day was the social scene and much less the academic scene. So
exactly.
Going back, I wish I could slap myself in the head and make myself pay attention better. But the life goes as it goes, right? So man, you switched over from rugby to martial arts. Another thing I wanted to ask you about that: how was the transition from leaving a sports like a team-based sport into a very individual sport like jiu-jitsu? Obviously, we have teams in jiu-jitsu, but your performance is on you when you step out there. How different was that to adapt to?
For me, it was almost another reason why I left, because sometimes I'd get super frustrated when it's like, when we're playing a game and like a match in rugby, and it's like I'm trying ridiculously hard to win, and then my teammates aren't, and it's like, or I'm getting put in the firing line to like make certain tackles and do certain things, and like they're not, like I was the smallest. My best attribute for rugby was like my tackling and my actual mauling of the ball, like when someone gets like tackled, acquiring the ball and like making turnovers basically, which considering my size was like a shocking thing, right? So it was like I would just get put at the front to make big tackles and make big conversions. Then when we're on the attack, I just wouldn't get past the ball too much, or I was relied on for things like the gruesome stuff, like getting hit pretty hard, hitting people hard, and like being in the mud. And then to a point, I was just like, I'm sick of it. Like this is just not fun anymore. Yeah. So I think that was it.
That really is a big appeal for people that switch over from team sports into an individual sport like jiu-jitsu or boxing or MMA, where it really is you have a team and you have a training group and everything, but your performance is really individual. It's very much on you, and that's good. It can be high pressure and also a little bit of a relief. Like I think, like you pointed out on the relief aspect, it's like, hey, look, my efforts are going to be vindicated through the results because it's me putting in all the effort. I don't have to rely on other people, and I also don't have to be damaged by other people's poor performance in order to win. At the same time, when you lose, it's like, dude, I got beat. The team didn't get beat. I got beat. And I know for someone like you who's super competitive, like you said, that's got to be something, an extra thing to balance. How has that been as far as dealing with, I guess, the downfalls and losing in jiu-jitsu, which everyone does? How have you taken that differently than when you lost a rugby game?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always been like, I feel like majority of the time I lose, it's like just because the person was better than me, right? There are certain scenarios where I've lost, like in the gi more specifically, where I've lost because of like lapel 50-50 or people who are just like really good at stalling, which those are the times where I'm like, I'm just irritated at the sport, not necessarily at myself. But then there are other times where, like if I lose to someone who's better than me at the time, I think it's more I just know that eventually I'm going to be better than them, or we're going to have a match again and I'm going to be able to beat them. And it's always just added motivation for me to get better and me train harder. I never like take losses like I don't get super upset. In the moment when I lose, I definitely get very angry, but then I don't feel like it damages me mentally or anything like this. And I also don't feel like I don't feel like I feel much pressure before matches, which is like, I think when I explain it to people, a lot of the people are quite shocked or surprised about it. Like I'm just not really nervous for things because I feel like if you've prepared well enough, or if you just believe in yourself enough, there's no need to like add all this pressure that, oh, what happens if you lose? What happens if this happens? I feel like if you just go out there and you compete, and especially for myself, I enjoy competing like a lot. Like even just the being there before your matches, being in the bullpen, like being next to people who you're going to fight and everything like this, the whole experience, I always enjoy it whether I win or lose. Like just being at a tournament, right? So for me, that's the main part anyway, just enjoying the experience. And then if winning is a byproduct of that, then great.
That's good, man. What a great attitude to have, man. Another piece of that attitude that I really liked is you mentioned that even when you do lose because someone was simply better than you, you have it in your mind that, hey, someday I'm going to pass them up. I'm going to get better than them. I'm going to keep working. Dude, that's a tremendous mindset, man. I'm sure that has a lot to do with your success that you've had so far. Is that something that you naturally had growing up? Did you always have a positive mindset like that, or is it something you learned?
I think so. I mean, my dad always like installed it into me like that, like, if someone's better than you now, doesn't mean they're always going to be better than you forever, right? It's always about like, especially, I think it helps, especially because I'm younger now. Like a lot of the time, people are telling me you have so much time to get better, which I have two like aspects of this, right? I think when I hear it, sometimes I get super annoyed when people are like, oh, you're only 18, you have so much time ahead of you. Because I'm like, look who's winning stuff right now, right? Like who's dominating the scene? Everyone is pretty much my age. Like Mika's just a bit older than me. Joseph Chen, who's just done bits, he's younger than me. You know, everyone who's like at the top right now at ADCC, maybe not everyone, but a majority of people are quite young. You know, they're in 18, early 20s and stuff like this. So, but then it also is true to a point. I do have a lot of time to develop and a lot of time to get better. So it's like sometimes I get annoyed when people say it. And other times I'm like, but it is true, you know? It's like a bit of both, truth to both, you know?
Absolutely. Well, what are some things that you do to ensure that you're the best version that you can possibly be? Like as you're going through this phase of your career where you're having some really good success early on, you're not even a black belt yet, and you're winning ADCC trials. What do you do to ensure that you're the very best version that you can be?
I think for me, it's just constantly trying to improve on things that I feel like I'm weak at, you know? And just being able to pick out where you're weak and where you're not and stuff like this, and your strengths and weaknesses, stuff like this. And I think just having the ability to use people around you and like not being afraid to lose rounds in the gym. I feel like this is quite important. Like majority of people I meet who lose rounds in the gym get super upset, you know, or they go super hard in training and like they won't work on things that they're bad at. They just go straight A game forever, and then you're not going to improve, right? Like I think when I was training in B team for like the month, like there were so many rounds that I lost and there's so many rounds that I got smashed. But like if I'm trying new things, I'm trying to get better. I don't really care, right? I can get sub 5 times a round. It doesn't really mean anything to me, right? As long as when I compete against them, I don't get sub. That's all that matters for me.
Absolutely.
So I think just constantly being able to like pick where you're weak and not being upset when you lose, you know, like in the gym mainly. Like you're losing rounds in the gym, so what? Like it literally means nothing. Like everyone's lost a round in the gym, and if someone wants to brag about beating in the gym, that just shows that they don't even know what they're talking about, because it means nothing. No one cares. The only person that's going to care is maybe them, and then you if you let it, right?
Yeah, I've often found that the people that take what happens in training rooms as like a win in some sort of way, they're usually not competitive. They're not actual competitive athletes. And it's usually just, they're in a mindset that's just not what it's supposed to be about. I love what you said there about how you'll intentionally put yourself in bad positions and accept the fact that, hey, this is not a good position of mine. I'm probably going to get tapped here, but that's the whole point. That's such a valuable message for people to hear. Because yeah, if you only, like you said, if you only play your A game all the time, then yeah, your A game will be sharp, but what happens when someone takes you out of that? What happens when you're up against someone that's able to pull you into their game? So what kind of things do you do to focus on your weak areas? Like, for example, what's an area that you think was your weakest area for a long time? What did you do specifically in training to fix it?
So, I mean, like, for me, I've always been like, just think that my mindset has always been to try and be well-rounded, right? Like, I feel like, because you never know for sure where the match is going to go. You can obviously direct it, and the better guys you fight, the more likely they're going to be able to force you into their game, right? So I feel like an area I was weak at before would maybe be playing guard on one side, and then I would just force myself every day to play guard on my bad side, right? Like let's say I'm good on my right, I would force myself to play guard on my left and then get my left as good as my right side. So now no matter which way someone passes, then I can defend that way, right? To be fair, a person who inspired me to this was like Ash Williams, right? He is like renowned for being able to knee cut to the wrong side. So I was like, if I'm weak at defending the knee cut to that side, he's probably going to beat me. So I was like, I need to get used to defending the knee cut to that side, you know? And then like just being able to bounce back and forth, I feel like it's much more dangerous. Like if someone's good at passing one side and I force him to the side he's not good at passing to, and now my guard's just as good on that side as it is on the other, that's going to be a factor. I think the one I'm working on the most now is wrestling. I think being at B team, being with like PJ Barch has helped a ton. Like just giving so many details with like J Flow and all these guys who are just like opening my eyes to how much like different it is, you know, like how the depth we have in jiu-jitsu, the same depth as in stand-up, right? So it's like being able to pick up more details from better people, or even people who I'd maybe beat, you know, like there's certain areas that they're good and I can steal stuff from them, you know.
That's great, man. I love that you mentioned wrestling. Wrestling is something that I think a lot of people now are starting to really emphasize in their training if they're competitive. If you're a good competitor, I think it's wrestling has become a huge part of grappling and jiu-jitsu. What areas of wrestling do you feel that are your strengths and your weaknesses? What are the things that you feel naturally spoke to you?
I feel like I was always like good at like finishing takedowns, and like I felt like I was always, if I got deep on the takedown, it was like pretty good. Like I felt like if I could get a hold of them with like a single or a double and stuff like this, I could finish it. I just feel like my hand fighting, I was like just lost, you know. I didn't really have like an intention of where to go. And obviously being from the UK, it's super hard to find people who are good at stand up and know how to hand fight and stuff like this. So like when I went away, my main goal was just try and learn how to hand fight and still like battling for underhooks, inside position, outside position, and like being able to just control the pace from standing, you know, like forcing them into where I wanted to be, either like claiming underhooks or playing like whizzers and stuff like this. I wanted to be able to just learn how to hand fight and set up takedowns, right? Like, because I could have a good shot, but if I don't know how to set it up, then it doesn't really matter. So now I think it was like learning setups and stuff like this, I think has improved for me a lot. And like, I think like ADCC rule set as well is super important to be able to pin someone flat on their back. So learning how to like either leg trap or trapping both the legs or forcing yourself maybe inside their legs in towards a closed guard and stuff like this, I think that's helped a lot. Like just learning how to positionally just dominate someone, right? And like get into good attacking position.
Yeah, absolutely. No, very well said. I like what you said there about feeling when you first were starting out, you felt like you were a little lost with the hand fighting. I swear that there should be hand fighting clinics and hand fighting specific classes, because that really is an aspect of wrestling and takedowns in the standing game that you have to kind of learn as you go. But it is confusing, man. We obviously know you want to get to like collar ties, you want to try to get to 2-on-1s, arm drags, snap downs, things like that. But what happens when the guy's actively fighting your hands and trying to do the same thing, and you have to learn these mental routes in your head of how to get around that and how to counter what he's trying to do. And it's a very dynamic, never ending game. And if you don't have a map, it can be tough.
Yeah, it's also like I feel like when you have an idea, you definitely get significantly less tired. I feel like if you're just moving for the sake of moving, you don't know why you're moving that way, you're gonna get yourself caught and you're gonna get tired. Like I feel like because even recently, like I'm still finding myself getting tired. And then I was training PJ, and he was like, "But why did you move that way? Like, what was your intention?" I'm like, "I don't even know. Because if you don't have an intention, it's just wasted movement, right?
Yeah.
And now you're getting tired." So he's like, your feints should actually have a purpose rather than just like moving and being like, "Oh, I'm going to go this direction," hoping that maybe he makes a mistake and I can capitalize on it. So it's like actually having a system, right? Progressively to like working your way towards an end goal, which would be either a takedown or get into their back.
Yeah, I'm really glad you talked about that, because it's a very common thing. I think people do when they're first learning, they're moving just to move, like you said, and anyone that has just a little bit of experience above you is going to pick up on that, and they're going to start really wearing you down. Like anytime you wrestle with someone that wrestled in like high school even or college, God forbid they wrestled at like a good college level, they'll notice right away like, "Oh, dude, this guy doesn't know what he's doing with the hand fight. I'm just going to make him tired. I'm going to let him keep spazzing, and eventually he's going to be sucking wind." So that's really cool that you've been able to rub elbows with guys like PJ Barch, and you mentioned J-Flow. That's really cool, man. You've gotten to have that kind of insight from those guys. Let me ask you this, man. When you're going through your development, something that I really appreciate about young athletes is that when I was a young guy, I had very little patience. I was someone that was I always wanted to rush through things, and I didn't like taking the baby steps in anything I did, whether it was jiu-jitsu or playing guitar or anything. And so I'd like to pick your brain on that a little bit, because obviously you've taken a tremendous amount of focus in your life towards being well-rounded in jiu-jitsu, which requires taking your time, taking baby steps, and really, taking development seriously. What advice would you give someone who feels like they're lacking patience with their development? Like they feel like they're just not progressing fast enough in their own mind. What would you say to someone?
I feel like you just have to like judge it on like small goals. I feel like people kind of aim too big a lot of the time. And like, for me, it's slightly difficult because I feel like when I start doing something, I feel like I always pick up relatively fast, right? But I think it's just being able to like not think about other people, right? Think about your own development rather than, "Oh, Joseph passed me 5 times today with this, whatever he's using." It's like, just think about like that one time where you maybe almost swept him or you slowed him down that little bit, right? Like before he was passing you 5, now he's passing you 4, like just little improvements, slight improvements. And I feel like if you don't feel like you're improving on a certain thing, maybe you're doing something wrong, right? Think about like asking people questions and being like, "Why isn't this working?" Or "What are you doing to stop this?" Right? Because like if you're consistently trying to play De La Riva and knocking people down from De La Riva and then it's not working, you're obviously doing something wrong, right? So either find out what you're doing wrong by asking people, or by watching matches, or by like recording your own rounds, looking at your own rounds and see like where you're obviously going wrong, because there has to be a flaw in your own game, or just be, and then sometimes you do have to be persistent, right? Like you're just gonna have to accept that you're gonna get past a bunch and then just keep going, keep going, keep going. Maybe if you're not seeing improvements in certain things, you can also think about like changing it slightly for you, right? Just because someone can play like a super good close guard doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna like close guard doesn't suit your body type, right? Like someone who has super long legs could play like a deep Dela X, for example, but you might not be able to, you know? So it's kind of like being able to like pick and choose what you should be improving at and then finding the best way to improve it at that position. And also that works for you, you know? What works for me won't necessarily work for you. What works for you won't necessarily work for another person, right? So I think it's like finding the best way you improve and then sticking to that, you know?
That's great advice, man. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, I think something important to point out is that obviously jiu-jitsu is one of the most difficult things that a person can choose to try to be good at. It is a very deep system of lots of moving parts, lots of different facets and areas. And then, of course, the better you get at certain things, the people you train with or compete with regularly are going to learn, hey, he's really good at that, so I'm going to do this to avoid that. Now you have to find ways to work around their response to the thing that you were previously making work really well. So it's this never-ending kind of development that we go through. The question I wanted to ask, branching off of that, is obviously something you mentioned earlier is that it's always been very important for you to be very well rounded. And with a system with an art like jiu-jitsu with many facets that are constantly moving and lots of different things for a new student to be focusing on, what advice would you give someone to be well rounded? How do you cut things up into like time periods that you're going to focus on one particular thing? How do you bring it all together?
Yeah, the thing with the time things is like it's very hard to know how. Like I could say I'm gonna work De La Riva for a month and then I'm gonna work this for a month, but maybe I've learned it quicker than I anticipated, and now I'm gonna change, right? Or maybe it's taken longer than 4 weeks. Maybe it's like we're 4 weeks in, and I'm like, I'm still not kind of getting it. Maybe I'll spend an extra 2 weeks on it, and like I think it's just developing it until you feel competent at it and you feel like you're having good success with it, you know? So I think for me, it's just the main things were like, I feel like my strongest area is like my passing, right? So now it's like working at getting on top. And like, I feel like people overcomplicate it, right? You know, if you're gonna play guard and you solely want to play guard and like, if you have decent passing, but you feel like your guard's much better, then you can like go into more depth, like leg locks, and like you can have like a super detailed guard, right? Whereas if you just kind of want to be on top, then your guard should just be, the only intention your guard should have is sweeping people effectively, right? You know, like I don't feel like you can be great at everything, you know? So I feel like if you're playing guard, you have very good passing. Why are you trying to spend a ton of time being super good at leg locks, you know? You can get decent, obviously, and you should need to have a bit of knowledge, but I don't feel like you want to be don't spend too much time in each area, you know? Like you kind of have to pick somewhere you're going to be strongest at and then work everything around it. So it's like, I don't want to say adequate, but so it's like good enough. You know, like I feel like Diogo Hayes is a good example. I feel like he won ADCC purely because he's super well-rounded. There were matches where he would stay on top and he was very good, has good base and doesn't get swept. And like he wouldn't always pass everyone, but he'd constantly be on the attack, right? He'd be pushing the pace. But then the other matches where he's playing guard against some of the best guard passers and he's handling his guard super well. Like he pulled guard against like Gabriel Souza, and Gabriel Souza has one of the best passing in the division. He can't pass, right? And then he starts to stand, and now his wrestling is probably his strongest suit, in my opinion. The majority of the matches that he's won against people who could possibly be better than him at jiu-jitsu is from wrestling. You know, he gets to their back, he scores points in overtime at ADCC, and like, so he's very well rounded. But you need to have somewhere where you're super comfortable there, right? Like you feel like no matter who you bring there, you're going to be the best at beating them in that position, right? But then you can't just be good at wrestling and just be good at guard, just be good at wrestling and just be good at passing. Because if someone forces you to a guard, you need to have something, right? You can't just be like a headless chicken, right? Just sitting on your back and just trying to kick people away.
Yeah, that's tremendous. I really like that, man. Yeah, I think everyone, what you emphasize really well is that everyone's going to obviously have their specialties. You're gonna have areas that are much better, that are the A game of your game if you lay it out. But it's impossible to become a master of every single facet and to be just a killer in every single facet. Very, very few people can do that, and it takes a very, very long time. I think that having the focus on being sufficient, having your specialties but being sufficient at everything is a really a good expectation for a lot of people to build. And of course, as you get older and as you spend more time, they get sharper and sharper. But I like the way you put that.
Yeah, because the way it's come to me now, like more in a more like a solidified way, is like if you're super good at body lock passing, you need to be able to get to a body lock pass from everywhere, from standing, from your guard, recovering off the bottom, sweeping back on top, and getting to that position. If you can't get to that position from almost everywhere, what's the point of being super good at that? Because someone can just stop you from getting there, you know? Like, you could fight someone you could be a really good wrestler, and you could fight someone who's better at wrestling than you. Now you're going to have to be able to play guard and have to sweep him from guard, right? You're going to have to find a way to get to where you're good at. So for me, it's like I'm probably best at passing. My wrestling wasn't great, but I was good at using leg entanglements to get on top. Or I would just let people pull. People who didn't want to pull, I'd play guard and then force my way to top. You know, I think it's like just getting to that position, being competent at getting to your position. And then in return, you'll probably be well-rounded because you're good at getting to where you're good at, you know?
That's great. That's really great, man. I like that. It's kind of like having anchor points, like having kind of home bases or anchor points that are your ultimate destination is there, but knowing how to get there from everywhere. That's perfect, man. That's a really, really great piece of advice you just gave. I could also see how that would sharpen up everything around that as well as you're working to get there. So let me ask you, obviously, dedicating yourself the way that you have to this game is it takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of drive. What do you think pushes you to show up to train every day and compete as often as you do? Is there something deep within you think that really pushes you, or what do you think it is?
I think for me, it's just always wanting to be the best. Like, you know, I feel like I just hate losing so much. And I just like, and I honestly, I enjoy the process as well. You know, I enjoy like seeing the progression, right? Seeing like from going to tournaments when I was like 17 and like nobody knowing who I was to then like now when I go to certain tournaments, I get recognized by people and like more recognition and more people messaging me for seminars, messaging me for privates, you know, it's like the recognition, and it just shows like, it gives you a sense of like accomplishment, you know, like you feel like you've actually achieved something, you know, you feel like the progression is constantly seeing results. It's what kind of like keeps pushing me forward. Like obviously I've had a massive jump recently, obviously off the trials, but it's like just seeing the constant increments like of more recognition, more higher matches, getting paid more for like a sport that I thought not necessarily I couldn't get no money from, but like obviously it's not that popular, right? So getting paid from it is very hard. And I had to go through certain circumstances where I was living at friends' houses, sleeping on couches and doing all this stuff to try and make ends meet, right? And I wasn't like living how I could have been living if I decided to do something else, right? Even like working in construction, I probably had a better lifestyle for a longer period of time, but then how happy would I have been as well, right? You know, I feel like for me, just being able to compete and winning tournaments, even if it's for like no money, I feel like it's just the happiest I get. I just get like the most dopamine, the most release from that. The only thing that's close is video games. But it's close. It's close.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. Well, man, speaking of trials, man, I would love to hear your account of your experience from start to finish of going through ADCC trials and pulling off the win, man. Tell us about your preparation. Tell us about the day itself, and how did you feel? Obviously, it's obvious how you felt when you won, but take us through the whole range of emotions there.
I mean, so the preparation was actually quite funny. I got injured like maybe a month and a half before ADCC. So like I fucked my foot bad. Like I popped it a couple times. So like I couldn't really train that hard, right? So like for maybe a month leading up to ADCC, I was literally just doing the bike every day. And I was like lifting weights, and I wasn't eating much food because obviously I was cutting weight for the 66, which is also annoying because they changed the day before weigh-in like a week before. And I was walking around like 67, and everybody else in my division was walking on like 71. Like Robert Deegan was like 72 kilos. Ash was walking around at 70. some of my friends who are in the division walking at like 71, and then I'm here at like 67. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make this weight easy. Same day, I'm like gonna smash it, and then they release it. I'm like, oh. Then I start eating like crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think then so it would have been 2 weeks before trials. It's when I first like it's when I started doing jiu-jitsu again. So then I had like maybe I want to say like 7, 8 sessions before trials. And like so the 6 weeks leading up to trials, I think I trained like 5, 6 times.
Wow.
Like so I barely even trained that much jiu-jitsu, but I felt like my cardio was so good because I was on that bike every day. And like I was just so annoyed at not being able to train that I would like just take it out on the bike. Like I would just jump on the bike at like random times of the day, and I would just try and kill myself on the bike. And I was just constantly trying to fix my cardio. I was lifting a little bit of weight as well, but not too much of that. It was more just like trying to get my cardio and getting the weight down. But my training sessions just before, I did feel pretty good though. I think maybe even the break from training kind of like helped me. You know, sometimes I feel like I take a break from jiu-jitsu. When I come back fresh, and everything's just making sense, you know?
Yeah, I think that's I've been through that a lot myself, man. There's been times where I've had to miss like a month of training from injury or just for life stuff, and thinking, oh God, I'm gonna be like so far behind. And you come back and you're just like, you know, you just feel refreshed. Like somehow those neurological connections you build, those neural pathways, they just stay in place. And I don't know, like taking a break sometimes really does do good in some ways.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, so you show up to the tournament. You're obviously your cardio's on fire. You're feeling good at the tournament. I assume your foot wasn't too bad at the tournament itself.
Yeah. No, the foot was fine. Yeah. Like it felt if I got outside heel hooked by anybody, I probably would have to tap. So my main intention was just don't get put in that position and it'll be fine. And it was also like I was super confident going in there because obviously the guy to beat in the division was Ash, and like I had trained with him a little bit, and I always felt like I could have beat him, you know? Like I competed against him a while ago when I was like, I think I was 17. I was like 17 or a blue belt, and I competed. I made like an all-stars absolute, like a brown and black belt division. He beat me 2-0. Like he swept me. I didn't feel like he was going crazy hard, to be honest, but like I always felt like I was there, you know? Like I probably couldn't have beat him that day, but I always felt like it was close enough, and there was so much improvement that I've had from then. I was like, going in there, I'm like, Ash is the guy to beat, and I can definitely beat Ash. And I was like, he's not going to pass my guard. If I can get on top of him, I'm going to pass him. So I was always super confident in that. And everyone before from London was like telling me how big of a chance I had. Like when I was coming to the training rooms, everyone was like, you're feeling sharp, and everything felt good. You know, like my passing felt good, my guard felt good. The wrestling was all right, but the guard and the passing felt on point. So going there, I was super excited. And like I think the environment at the tournament was just like, it was crazy because what happened, like a bunch of the guys from the UK kind of like lost quite early. So it was almost like I just had like a massive crowd behind me, like supporting me. And it was me and a guy called Taylor Pittman who got relatively far. I think Taylor got to like maybe the quarters. And when I got to the semis, everyone was like behind me because everyone had lost by then. So it was literally just me. So it was like everyone from like the UK was all there watching. Everyone's like cheering and supporting. I was like, oh, this is my time. It's like I enjoy like kind of having like the crowd watching, like the pressure building up. I'm like, this is going to be sick, you know? And I had like went to war with a couple of people. I was like, this is the one.
That's cool. That's so cool, man.
I think during the day, I think the moment I knew it was like, oh, I'm definitely going to win this. I think after I beat Robert the Eagle, I was like, okay, yeah, this is it. You know, like I just felt like the strategies I was implementing, like I felt like everything would make sense. Like the rules make sense. My guard felt good. My passing felt good. I was like, everything is just like, it's just my day. You know, everything's just perfect right now, you know?
That's incredible. Well, that's something I wanted to ask you about. You mentioned that if you felt that due to your foot injury, had anyone caught you in a heel hook, it would have been a big problem. That's got to be a concern going in with Robert Diggle for sure, man. So once you got through him, that had to be a huge confidence boost. Before that match, was that a concern? It's like, man, this is one of the top leg lockers in the game right now.
For him, it wasn't really an issue too much because it was like, I know all he wants to do is put me in a saddle and try and inside heel hook me, and I felt like my inside heel hook defense, I feel like is very good. I feel like the only person who does it now to me is Owen Flanagan. He's like 90 kilos and just so strong. So like I always felt like my defending of saddle and stuff like this, especially when you know his intention is to only go there, I feel like it's quite easy to shut someone down, you know, unless they're significantly better than you. So I was like, I always thought if he got me in the position, I'd be worried, right? But I was never really I think it was like there was a point in the match where he almost put me in saddle and I escaped quite easy. And like I could like feel he was frustrated. I was like, oh, he's like just not going to get on my legs. And it was like everyone was trying to get my legs. I was like, there's no way. You know, everything's just feeling sharp. I was just like counter back takes into like cryo stuff. So I was like, oh yeah, it's good. And I think after like my first or second match, I think I kind of just forgot about my foot. You know, I was just kind of in the moment, just thinking about winning. I was like, it doesn't even matter.
Incredible. That's incredible, man. Well, obviously this is a rhetorical question because we all know how you felt when you won, but take me through the emotions anyway. I think it's fun to hear this kind of stuff. So you win the trials. What's going through your head? How you feeling?
Straight after I win the trials, my first thought was, I can't wait to get drunk. Genuinely, that was the first thought.
That's a very London answer. I like that. I appreciate that. Yeah. That's a good one.
The first thought was, what is the best club in Poland? Right. And send me there right now. That was the first thought. And then because it took a while to like kind of settle into me what like that I was actually going to ADCC, you know? And it only really like clicked properly like when I went to America and everyone's like, oh, how do you feel about going to ADCC? And I'm like, I haven't even really thought about it, you know? It's like after I won trials, it was like, oh, I just won a big tournament. Everyone's super happy. Let's just get drunk and enjoy the moment, you know, and just like celebrate. I didn't like think, damn, I'm going to Vegas in August. It was more like, oh, just enjoy this moment and live in it and, you know, like keep the hype going and like just stay, like my adrenaline was like through the roof and everything was so happy. I think like for me, because after I beat Ash, like no matter what happened after that, I was just the happiest man in the world, you know. I was just like, I was on top of the moon. I was like, this is the guy to beat in like the 6th division in Europe. Like he's been kind of the best European guy for quite a while now. And it's like wasn't even like close. Like no one's really giving him hard matches. He was kind of like subbing everyone. So after I beat him, I was like, oh bro, this is it. This is sick. I'm on top of the world right now. So yeah, then I got very drunk and then yeah, that was it.
Guess found a good spot in Poland to go hang out. Yeah.
I found a decent spot. Yeah, it wasn't bad. And then I partied back in London as well. You know, I had to keep it going.
That's awesome. Well, man, it was such a cool moment. It was such a cool breakout story, man. And congratulations! I can't wait to see you get out there in ADCC in Vegas, man. It's gonna be so cool to see you out in the mix, man. So, but we'll be pushing for you, man, for sure. And we're very excited for you.
Yeah. One moment actually, there was me and Joseph had a little scuffle. Not a scuffle, but like you know, because he won. Because after I won, I was the youngest person to win European trials, and then literally he won the next match, and his birthday is July 31st and mine's July 13th, so I'm only like 20 days younger than him, you know, like he's 20 days younger than me, sorry.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh, I was furious. I was so angry.
Dude, you know what, like, you're on the
my
board.
Fame, bro. Yeah, it's like, stole my claim to fame.
You're still on the board, man. You're still you had it for 15 minutes. It's all good, man. You were there. You're there on the record.
I had my name up there.
You're up there. Yes, exactly. Man, Owen, we've reached about the halfway point of the show, man. This is where I always play a game with my guest. This is a game called the Pummel.
Okay.
The Pummel is a series of random questions. Some of these are about jiu-jitsu. Some of them have nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. But if you're down to play the Pummel, I'd love to play this game with you.
I'm ready.
All right, man. Question 1. What's the worst job you ever had?
Construction, labor.
Construction, yeah. What kind of construction did you do? What specifically were you doing?
Basically, I helped a bricklayer, so I would just like carry a bunch of shit for him and like throw stuff in the skip and then like make his cement and like mixers and stuff like this. Just horrible stuff, you know. And I was young as well. Waking up at like 6:30 in the morning, going to there 7. The only benefit was you finished quite early, to be fair. But it's like working from like 7 till 3. I'm like, oh, this is horror.
Dude, yeah, we call that character builders, backbreakers, but character builders. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
What's a secret talent that you have that people might not know about?
Secret. I'm incredibly good at video games.
Okay, cool. What are your favorite video games? What do you like to play?
Call of Duty. I like Rainbow Six Siege. I played Fortnite for a bit, but then I kind of moved off of that, like when they kind of ruined the game. But Call of Duty and Rainbow Six Siege, basically any first-person shooter, I'm extremely good at. This is the one that people come and they train with me, and like maybe someone like they beat me or whatever, and then they start talking about Warzone. We get on the controller and I smash everyone.
You get your revenge.
It's my hidden skill. I get my revenge on the game, on the consoles.
Oh, that's great, man. You play a lot of Warzone. Is that the one, the Call of Duty one?
Yeah. I play a lot.
I still play occasionally. Modern Warfare, World at War, the World War II one. I still love that one. I love the old iron sights and like just the feel of the World War II style weaponry, and it's interesting because you see people that play like in leagues and have like rankings and things like that, and they talk on like online. I've seen a couple of YouTube videos where they talk about the strategy and how to play, and it's like, dude, wow, these guys are like so much deeper into this than like, oh my god, man.
I used to play like search and destroy tournaments on Call of Duty. So I used to do like tournaments. I had like a little, like a little squad. We'd all join like a little Discord and just start grinding video games and just sitting in like 7 hours just in front of a screen, just like burning my eyes out, And like we have all these like strategies, all these plans. It's like, I enjoyed it a lot, man. It was good fun.
How much strategic crossover do you think there is between Call of Duty and Jiu-Jitsu? Is there anything at all strategy-wise that crosses over?
I mean, I think you always have to thinking ahead is always like an option, right? Like in Call of Duty, you always have to think about where you're positioning, I guess, and like thinking about rotating different ways and like having set plans to do stuff. I think it's the same in Jiu-Jitsu. I wouldn't say it's like a direct correlation, but there is like the mental side is still similar, having to think about. But then I've seen people really good Jiu-Jitsu try and do video games. I'm like, how are you so bad? It is horrible. But I think there's definitely a little bit of like strategic planning going in for both, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love that, man. What do you think is the worst injury that you've had so far in Jiu-Jitsu?
Probably my foot.
Foot, before ADCC.
My ankle, yeah. How did that? Before that, I never got injured.
Really? That's your first injury you ever had? Wow.
That's my first injury I had to take off time for.
Wow. That's excellent, man. What do you credit that to? Do you just train smart? You tap early? What do you credit that to?
I think I've always just been built quite sturdy, like from playing rugby and everything. I feel like I'd always take knocks and bumps pretty hard. I would always tap early as well. I wouldn't really hold on to submission too late. Sometimes, obviously, your ego gets in the way sometimes, but I feel like I was always pretty smart with how I was training and stuff like this. But I would always do, but in saying that, I would always do dumb stuff like flying triangles and flyers, where I'm like landing on my neck, which probably if somebody else did, they might get injured from. But I'm just like, I wake up next morning, I'm fine, So it's just being built quite short and compact. It helps as well, not having super long limbs,
Yeah.
Everything's quite short and compact, like a fridge.
That's also got to be like the rugby and also the carrying the bricks, man. That all has to be part of the mix.
Carrying the bricks is hard.
What do you think is your favorite bad food to eat? What's your favorite junk food?
My favorite junk food? Oh, this is a hard one. I like a good burger. In America, definitely like a nice greasy burger.
Yeah.
I've had like a couple of them ones. Bro, the California burrito that I had recently.
Yeah, those are good.
When I was in San Diego, that was fire. But in London, fried chicken,
Fried chicken.
Yeah, you go to like a good PFC or like a good chicken shop, like a local chicken shop on the corner. You have the boss man behind the counter. That's a good one.
That's awesome. So you've got your fast food broken down to wherever in the world you're in. I like that. You have like regional. Yeah, you know what to do in different regions.
Yeah. Chick-fil-A as well. Oh,
yeah,
bro, I love Chick-fil-A.
Yeah,
Chick-fil-A is fire.
Chick-fil-A is good. Describe your perfect burger.
I like it just meat, cheese, a ton of ketchup, maybe a little bit of lettuce, not too much. And I just prefer the having maybe 2-3 patties in it and just cheese and ketchup. And I don't mind a little bit of salad, but I don't like it when it's flooded with a bunch of stuff inside of it. I prefer just the meat. Yeah.
That's awesome. Just
nice
classic.
Brioche bun.
That's awesome, man.
Classic.
Good. Perfect choice, man. What's your most hated position in jiu-jitsu to get stuck in?
To get stuck in? Ooh. I mean, the back is probably the worst position to be in, right? But I don't like being. Craig put me in some horrible positions, The twister's pretty bad.
Twister's bad.
If you get caught in a twister, that's not great.
That's not comfortable.
But also, a half guard when you have someone bigger than you just cross facing you, that's pretty horrible.
That's rough. Yeah.
Craig tapped me to chest compression and stuff like this. That's definitely some of the worst I felt. Where I'm why do I even do this? Why do I do this to myself? Why do I roll with you?
That's awesome, man. I love that. What do you think was the scariest moment of your life?
Scariest moment of my life. When I was younger, I almost fell off a roller coaster.
Oh, really? Fell out of the roller coaster?
Yeah. So I was in Winter Wonderland, and which is I think it's quite famous.
Yeah. Sure.
Even some Americans know know what it is. But I was on one of them. The ones that spin around pretty fast, and you kind of have little dips, and you just have the metal bar in front of you. So I was there with my uncle, and as it's coming around the corner, I just start sliding out the top. So as it dips, I start flying at the top, like my whole torso's out of it. So I'm going, I'm out, you
No.
know,
Oh
it's
no.
almost over. And like my uncle catches like my kind of like my leg, like the pant of my leg on my jeans and
Dude.
pulls me back in. Yeah, it
Dude.
was wild. I was
That
quite young
is
as well.
that is
I was like 9 years
crazy.
old. I'm flying out. I'm like, what's going on? Yeah, I think that was pretty scary.
That's terrifying, dude. I hope they've redesigned the the safety bar on that thing. That's not supposed
Yeah,
to
I think my
happen,
dad got
man.
paid a little bit. I think my dad got paid a little bit for that. I
Yeah,
can't
I was
remember.
gonna say, yeah, if you had fallen out, then you gotten paid a lot. That's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Wow, man. I'm glad your uncle had
Yeah, yeah,
good instincts, man. That's
yeah.
awesome.
You got that good instinct. The genetics coming in clutch.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Who do you think's your all-time favorite grappler?
All-time favorite. Mm, I love Lucas Lepre. I feel like he's great. Oh, Leandro was great as well. He's like his style was so like just like explosive and dynamic. I love that kind of style. I did like Fabricio Andre quite a lot, you know. I loved his style as well. But now he's a rival, you know. Now I have to compete against him. So can't say him. Yeah, probably Lucas Lepre or Leandro Lo. Those are the two who I think.
Great
I do.
choices. Great choices, man. Yeah, I used to learn from Lucas. I trained at Alliance in Atlanta for a while, and
Oh, sick.
he was one of the instructors there. And I always say like the thing I remember most about learning from Lucas was that if I ever got to roll with him and he was passing guard, it's like I couldn't say my guard sucked. It's just like my guard didn't exist. Like I just didn't have a guard. He's just buzz
Yeah,
throw through anything. Yeah, it's unbelievable, man. It's a really surreal experience. What do you think is your biggest phobia?
Phobia. Things I don't like. Phobias. I mean, I don't like spiders, to be fair.
Spiders. Okay.
But
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a phobia of spiders, but I think in terms of stuff that I just dislike, snakes, no snakes.
Snakes.
Like,
Yeah.
I hate snakes. I like, because I'd hold a spider, I would not hold a snake. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you see them people like when I was in Vegas, I saw these guys all standing on the side having snakes, offering me to hold it. I'm like, no,
It's like
why am I going to pay you to hold a snake? I don't want to hold your snake. Keep it over there. The creature doesn't even make sense to me. Just keep it over there.
What kind of snakes are in England? You guys have snakes there? What kind do you have?
We don't have snakes here.
There's no
There's
snakes.
no
There's none
snakes.
in England.
I mean, there's none like on the street. Like you can go to a zoo and see a snake, you know? Like, or you can go to like a pet shop and probably buy a snake.
Okay.
But like you won't be out in public and there'll be like a snake crawling the grass. That doesn't really
But like
exist.
if you go out into like the forest, like into the woods or something in England, there's not natural snakes. Oh wow. Okay. Cool.
Maybe. I don't think so though.
Yeah, but you're not going to go out
I
there.
might be wrong.
Yeah, you're not going to go
I
out
ain't
there.
going. I ain't trying to look for no snakes.
You're not going to find Owen in the woods.
We got squirrels. We got squirrels. Little squirrels on the trees, you know.
There you go.
And we have some deers in different
Yeah.
places, but I ain't seen no snakes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What do you think is your favorite? Let me pick another one good for you here for you. What's an embarrassing song or type of music that you secretly like to listen to?
Do you know? Recently, I like this song called "Country Girl."
Country
I think it's
Girl.
by Luke Bryan. Luke Bryan, is that his name?
Luke Bryan. Yeah,
It's like a country song.
Luke Bryan.
Yeah. That's a song I've been playing a lot recently. It's
Okay,
like a country
cool.
song. I don't listen to country songs. I usually listen to like UK drill, grime, rap music like this.
Yeah.
It's a massive curveball for my usual taste, you know.
That's awesome.
I'm usually like walking out to like proper like Chicago drill and stuff like this. That's more my style of music. But it's been hitting recently. I've been playing it when I'm teaching the classes. People are like, what's going on with you? I'm like, man, it's a good song, man. It's a good song. Got back from Texas and all of a sudden I got country music playing during the class. They're like, what's going on?
That's excellent, man. We talked earlier about your favorite bad food to eat. What's your most hated food? What's something you cannot eat no matter what?
Something I cannot eat. I don't like fish, you know.
Oh, you don't like fish? Okay. Yeah.
I don't like fish. Like seafood, it doesn't really like appetize me. When I see seafood, I'm like, I don't mind sushi. Sushi's not too bad, but like things like crab, when people eat stuff like that, I'm like, why? You know, just why? Like, well, I don't look at a crab and go like, oh, that would taste
It's
nice.
delicious.
The only exception is like fish and chips from like a chip shop down the road. You know,
Yeah.
it's like fried cod with
Yeah.
chips. That's okay. But like when I see people do these cuisines and they're like eating crab and like lobsters and stuff, I'm like, what? No. No, it doesn't look tasty.
Dude, the funny thing about that, I like crab and shrimp and lobster, but when I look at
I don't mind shrimp.
you don't mind shrimp, okay?
Shrimp is okay. Shrimp is good.
You know what's
Shrimp I
funny?
can have.
When you look at crustaceans, though, they really do look like bugs. Like they look like they're part of the
Bruh.
insect family. And so then you start thinking about like, dude, I'm eating like water bug meat. You know what I mean? It's good.
Oh.
Like when it's on a plate in front of me, I like it. But then when you see the actual animal, you're like, that's a bug, dude. Right?
when they have like the lobsters inside them like things, and they take them out, and then they go, bro, oh, nah. They got little claws. I'm not here for it. I don't like it.
That's great. What do you think who do you think is your favorite superhero?
Superhero. Oh, Thor.
Thor. Good
100%.
choice. Good choice.
100%.
If you could have a superpower, what would you choose?
If I could have a superpower. Oh, teleportation or time travel.
Good one. I like those.
Those two are the ones.
Those are good, man. Final question for the Pummel game. If a zombie apocalypse breaks out right now in London, what's the first thing you're going to do?
The first thing I'm going to do is zombie apocalypse. Oh, I don't even know. Hide, probably. Yeah, cool, David. What's the plan? Yeah, probably hide. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe get to somewhere safe, high buildings, something like this. Get some weapons. Open the drawer, get some knives out.
There you go. That's awesome. I like that you'd call your instructor, man. That's a good way to go. Like, I think having a jiu-jitsu team is a good start, man. You can at least have like a network of people to call, and someone probably has weapons, someone probably has a plan and has thought about it. So that's good.
David will have a good plan, I'm sure. I'm sure he'll line it up.
Dude, one of the best zombie movies ever was in England. It was 28 Days. You've seen 28 Days Later?
Yes.
Oh, bro. It's like my favorite zombie movie ever. Yeah.
It's fine.
It's incredible, man. I like that one because it was different than some of the American ones where, like, in the American zombie movies, like, everyone has guns. So it's just like a war zone kind of thing. But in England, it was all like there was the military that they relied on. But a lot of it was just people having to use their smarts and their intuition and just working with what they had. I thought that was a really cool aspect of 28 Days Later.
Yeah, I mean, because getting a hold of a gun in London is a difficult task, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
In America, it's not that difficult, you know. You can walk down the street and there's gun store, liquor store. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, it's like if you're in Texas, the zombie apocalypse breaks out. They're all just like, oh cool, bro. Like awesome, man, fun.
Just open the glove box. Yeah.
It's just like
start going to town.
Yeah. Oh man, and Owen, that was the final question for the Pummel game. Congratulations, you win. You got your double underhooks.
That was good fun. Yes,
excellent, man. Oh, and man, your guard is phenomenal, man. But I want to focus the technical portion of our discussion today on your passing game. Your ability to chain passes together is just so smooth, man, and often appears effortless when you're doing it. Take me through your thought process when you're approaching a seated or supine opponent. What are typically your immediate objectives, and how do things usually progress from there?
So, I mean, I think it's definitely dependent on who you're coming up against, right? Like, if someone is happy to play off their back, you know, then always just like you can cut angles much easier because you don't have to worry about them just either standing up or them wrestling up, right? So for like, we'll go off like they want to play guard, right? If they want to play on guard, then my immediate thing is forcing them supplines or forcing them to play off their back, and then just cutting angles, even cutting angles without touching them, right? Just like walking towards angles, cutting towards sides, making sure I'm always applying pressure with either like my head or my hands, making them carry my weight. And then forcing them. I think the favorite reaction I like is just forcing people to high pummel. I feel like if I can ever force someone to high pummel, it's always going to set up like my chain of attacks that I have like all already implanted in my head that I don't have to think about, you know? Because I've done it so often that when I start a passing sequence, I'm not thinking about anything, you know? Like you kind of enter like the flow state where everything's just like chaining together, you know? It's like thigh drags to back steps to like double underhooks to stacking to taking their back is all usually one, like a thought process, should I say? Like I'm not thinking, okay, he's done this, I'm going to do this. It's just happening. I'm just doing it as it goes. But usually it's more forcing knees away from the chest. There's things I'm thinking about, trying to get inside that space, making sure I like being just like underneath their armpits a lot of time, even if that's with underhooks or if I'm going to north-south, using my elbow inside, getting my body inside of just inside space, right? Getting hip to their chest or my chest to their chest, and then trying to get inside position and just cutting angles on the outside for sure. I think it's the main things, and then using my speed to go left and right.
That's great, man. Yeah, I really like that you emphasize the importance of number one, having a flow state that you can get into where you're chaining attacks together and not thinking so much ABC, but more thinking you flowing through your options. I think that's a place that I think we all work to get to by drilling and working our options. I also like that you emphasize the importance of like a diverse arsenal of loose, long range, and tight smashing passes. Do you think that generally speaking, people need to have options from far and close, like loose and tight passing options, or do you think that people could get away with just being good at only one style?
I think you can get away with like not only be like I think you can get away with being good at one style, but I think only being good at outside passing is difficult, just because you have to solidify positions, right? And you have to be able to make sure they can't just stand up. Like if you know how to tight pass, they can't really stop you from getting to a tight position, right? Like if you're good at body locks, obviously forcing body locks can sometimes be difficult, but like as long as you know how to get to half guard and pass from chest to chest, you can always force that, right? Whereas outside passing is hard to force if your opponent's either just going to stand up or if they're super good at like creating connection, right? Forcing you into half guard, playing these deep half positions, then it's kind of difficult to get back to a disengaged position where you can pass on the outside. But I think you can definitely get away with just being good at like tight passing or mid-range like split squat stuff. As long as you're good at those, I feel like you don't necessarily have to have outside passing. But I think if you're good at outside passing, you have to have either like a mid-range or a tight passing, right? Like, so for me, I would say definitely my strongest is outside passing, but then I definitely have like a mid-range where I'll be sitting inside of a split squat or I'll be forcing chest to chest from like certain angles, like where I'm camping, like I'm walking the hips across and then getting into that space. But then if you're super good at like north-south passing as well, kind of shuts down their option, makes it harder for them to stand up. Also, like Dorian Oliveira's, I don't feel like he did any inside passing, right? I didn't feel like he went through the middle or tight passing once. I feel like he was just consistently going to the outside. And that he won probably one of the hardest trials using them just outside passing, right? But then the difference, I think, for him is if someone stands back up, that's what he wants. He's like, if you want to stand up with me. I'm just going to take you back down, or I'm going to duck under you to your back. So I think if you have the ability to know you're going to out wrestle a person, you can just be competent at outside passing. But if you are worried that maybe you're not as good as wrestling as them, or you don't want to have to go through that wrestling exchange again, you have to be able to keep them flat on their back, which sometimes you have to step in between their legs to force them to not be able to stand, Because if I'm Torianding to the outside and they post and they start standing up, forcing them back down without being able to like lift the leg or having head over head is quite difficult, Whereas if I'm in a split squat and I have head over head, I can go from there to an outside passing sequence, I can go from the inside to the outside. Whereas if I'm just standing on the outside, sometimes it's difficult to stop people from standing up or stop people from wrestling up. But obviously, if you're competent at wrestling, then it shouldn't really matter that they're going to stand up anyway, because that's what you want. So I think those are the things to think about.
Yeah, man, great pieces of advice, man. I think something that happens with a lot of people is when you're rolling with someone that has a decent guard, who has good retention, it can be frustrating when they shut down numerous attempts at passing. And I've noticed that the guys that are really good at passing guard seem to have just a really calm and patient demeanor, and understand that, okay, look, it's not going to work. It might not work on the first or even the fifth attempt to get through this guard if it's decent. What pieces of advice would you give to someone about just being more patient and when it comes to passing guard and not rushing and not getting flustered when it doesn't work the first few times?
Yeah, this is something you have to keep in mind, right? Like someone who's got a good guard and knows how to retain properly, the only way you're going to pass, if they know what they're doing and they're good at it, is by making them tired, right? You have to consistently be able to chain attacks off of their guard retention. And like you have to be able to nullify their attacks while making them tired, Like my main intention with a lot of my movement is to force them to push me away to retain, Like I'll make them overframe, overextend me, make them have to really bridge and push me away. And there's only so much they can do it. And let's say if I'm constantly attacking for even like 5 minutes, right, where I'm constantly making him carry my weight, pressuring into him, he's eventually either going to get tired or he's going to make a mistake. He's going to pummel too slow. And these are the times he's going to capitalize on the opportunity. So it's like just consistently going from like left to right, I think is the big thing for me as well. It's like being able to go from one side to the other and like even like double backing yourself. So like if you're going right to left and faking going left and keep going right, like making people really have to work to retain their guard. Eventually people are going to get tired and they're going to get frustrated, right? And they're going to either make a mistake because they're sick of retaining and that's when you're going to pass, or you just wear them out to the point where their pummels get slower, their frames get weaker, and you can get inside that position, right? As long as you're not letting them attack you back, you should be consistently controlling the pace, always being on the offense. If they start attacking you, let's say they've like thrown up arm bars from bottom when you're trying to pass, rather than going like completely into a defensive cycle, you use like a defense to kind of get an offense. You can't like completely back off. You have to be able to keep going in and making them tired. That's the main important thing. You don't want to give them time to rest, especially if they have a good guard.
Yeah, great advice, man. Owen, there's something you've said a couple times in our conversation today that I think is important to zoom in on. You mentioned the importance of working left to right, being able to attack and pass from both sides. Obviously, we all have our good side and what we call our dumb side, right? When you're first trying to develop your dumb side, it can be very frustrating because you just feel like, man, I can do it up to the left. Why can't I not do this to the right? Like, why is my brain just not cooperating with me here? How frustrating was it for you when you were first working your air quotes dumb side?
I mean, I think because I'm ambidextrous, I can write and do stuff with both hands. I feel like even going both sides for me always felt relatively natural, right? And what it was for me is like, I always have goals. Like I have certain things that I'm good at on this side and then certain things I'm good at on that side, right? Like I wouldn't try and be good at the same thing on each side, Like some people will knee cut to one side, then they'll smash past to the other, right? Or I'll thigh drag to one side and I'll scoop grip to the other. I think you definitely need the ability to toreando to both sides for sure. And also passing north-south both sides. Sometimes it is difficult and it gets a little bit frustrating, but I think it's just perseverance, just keep trying, keep working it and like just accepting the fact you're going to get your back taken, you're going to get swept, you're going to get submitted from it. Or it's just not going to work the whole round and then you're going to get tired. Just being able to push through those like moments of frustration, and like moments of like, oh, I'm sick of this,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, great advice, man. What do you think was the biggest obstacle that you faced in your guard passing development? What aspect of guard passing took you the longest to get good at?
So, I mean, for me, it was coming from the gi to no gi, right? Because before, maybe like a year and a half ago, I was only doing the gi. And even before trials, like I was mainly doing the gi anyway. I did like the whole IBJJF circuit and I was like consistently competing in the gi and training a majority of my time in the gi. Obviously, I was doing a lot of no gi as well, but majority of my focus was in the gi. So the main thing for me was like solidifying positions, like, because with the grips, it's just significantly easier to just hold someone, like if I have a pant grip and I have a collar, once I'm there, you can't really get rid of those grips, right? And like when I pass your guard, there's so much friction in side control that like when I'm holding like your belt and I'm pulling on cross faces, it's much harder for you to retain. Whereas no-gi, there's always like so many crazy like jailbreak escapes and like it's super sweaty. So if someone like pushes you away, you can just like kind of slide. Like I could just stiff arm you and you're going to go flying away. Whereas if in the gi you try stiff arm me, I have collar grips, I can pull myself back in and I can use that to demolish your frame. So the hardest part for me was definitely figuring out ways to solidify positions. And I also just like, instead of always trying to solidify, I just like chasing the back is what I kind of like the answer to my issue, right? My issue was being able to solidify side control and mount. So the way I've answered that is just by forcing people to turtle more or chase their back more with like different movements, right? Using like underhook scoop grips, forcing people to turtle, or like forcing chest to back, using like fish hook grips to like pull them across. So as long as I can like force back exposure, that's helped a lot. And then for like actually solidifying positions, a lot of the times now it's like getting my hand under their back, because if I feel like if I can start curling their spine and like using cross faces to force them to face away from me, it's easier to pin and solidify positions. So I think hand under the back has helped me a lot. I can like pin their hips. It makes it harder for them to bridge. And then recently as well, PJ Bart showed me like some super good details, like cross faces about like digging your fingers in their back and stuff like this, like flaring elbows and stuff like this. If you want it, you gotta get PJ for that technique. But yeah, he's got some really good like pressure passing stuff that I'm sure you'll see him doing a lot of recently as well.
That's excellent, man. That's really cool. Well, guys, if this is an aspect of your game you guys are wanting to improve upon, Owen actually has a great instructional with us. It's called Outside the Guard, Inside Her DMs. Dude, phenomenal name, yes. By the way. Excellent name. Very
thank you.
Extra points for the name of the instructional. It's available right now at BJJFanatics.com. He covers all this stuff, guys. So if you're having trouble passing guard, particularly in no-gi, when you don't have those grips to hang on to, check this one out. It's very good. Owen, man, in closing, probably an obvious question, obvious answer I'm going to get, but what's your biggest goal for 2024?
Biggest goal for 2024? Win an ADCC for sure. And hopefully some other goals I have some super fights on some shows. Someone maybe who's number one, others on Polaris. Thinks another goal will be winning the belt on Polaris. That'd be a big one. Maybe even some point this year fighting for the belt on who's number one. For me, the biggest goal though, and like the thing I would want to achieve the most, is definitely beating Diego Pau. Because for me, I feel like he's the best guy in the division. He's the most skilled. I think like he is the most technical, and he's probably improving at like the biggest rate from what I can see so far from like the compares. So beating Pau will be my number one goal. If that comes in ADCC, if that comes in a super fight, no matter where it comes, that would be the number one thing.
Well, folks, unfortunately, we are fresh out of time. Owen, man, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you taking the time to be here. Like I said, you're a very exciting athlete to watch, man. I'm really looking forward to watching your career develop from here, and I appreciate you taking the time to share your story with us today. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it for having me. It's been a good conversation. I enjoyed it a lot. We got some good topics, some good questions. Thank you very much for having me. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad you had a good time. For anyone out there that wants to keep up with Owen, it's real easy to do so. The two platforms on social media that he uses is Instagram and TikTok, both Owen Jones BJJ. So you can find him on TikTok and Instagram, Owen Jones BJJ. You guys, if you want to learn from Owen directly, he's got two great instructionals with us. The one that we talked in depth about today is called Outside the Guard, Inside Her DMs. It makes me laugh every time. Great instructional for passing. He's also got a great reverse guard instructional that also has a very funny name, but I'm forgetting what the name is at the moment. What is the name of the reverse?
I got it. It's a reverse cowgirl. Reverse close guard. That's the one.
That's so great. So yeah, two great instructionals, guys. I haven't had a chance to go through the the reverse open guard one yet, but check that out too, because that's a great instructional. I'm sure you put the one that I have seen is open the guard, outside the guard, inside her DMs, which is outstanding. So you guys check those both out at BJJFanatics.com. And that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in. Please stay tuned for the next episode of the BJJ Fanatics podcast.